Dark clouds gathered over the small coastal town of Bay Ridge on a gloomy Thursday evening. The weather had been getting worse all day, but no one expected what was about to happen. The town's weather station had warned about rain, but this was different. This was the kind of storm that made history. Luna, a beautiful German shepherd mix with gentle brown eyes and a coat that once must have been shiny and well cared for, sat shivering under a broken piece of metal roofing near the Rivera River. Her belly was swollen with puppies, and she was tired, so very tired. Just 3 weeks ago, she had been living in a home with a family she trusted. But they had driven her to this part of town and left her here, never looking back as she chased their car until her paws hurt. Since then, Luna had survived unkindness. Mrs. Thompson, who lived in the blue house near the river, would leave food out for her every morning. The old man who walked with a cane would sometimes bring her biscuits. Even the children from the nearby school would share their lunch with her when they saw her. But none of them could take her home. Mrs. Thompson had allergies. The old man lived in a no-pets building, and the children had parents who said no. The first drops of rain felt cold on Luna's nose. She tried to curl up tighter under her shelter, but the wind was pushing the rain in from all directions now. Her makeshift home wasn't going to protect her much longer. The river, usually so calm and peaceful, was starting to make angry noises. Luna had never seen it like this before. Thunder crashed overhead, making Luna jump. Her heart was beating fast, and she could feel her puppies moving inside her, probably as scared as she was. She needed to find somewhere safer, but everywhere she looked, water was starting to cover the ground. The nice dry spot under the bridge where she sometimes slept was already underwater. Luna got up carefully, her pregnant belly making it hard to move quickly. She tried to walk away from the river, but there was water coming from that direction too. The rain was falling so hard now that it was difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. She could smell other animals, cats and rats, and even some rabbits, all running away from the rising water. The pregnant dog found herself moving to higher ground, following her instincts. She ended up on a small hill near the river's edge, but the water kept rising. Her paws were getting wet now, and the soil under her feet felt loose and scary. Luna let out a cry, not her usual bark, but a sound of pure fear and desperation. She was cold, wet, and terrified. The water was up to her ankles now, then her knees. Luna tried to go higher, but there was nowhere left to go. Behind her was deep water, and in front of her, the little piece of ground she was standing on was getting smaller and smaller. Her whole body was shaking, from cold, from fear, and from exhaustion. In all her life, even on the day her family abandoned her, Luna had never felt so alone. She cried again, louder this time, hoping someone, anyone, would hear her over the storm. The puppies in her belly moved again, reminding her that she wasn't just trying to save herself, she was trying to save them too. The rain kept falling. The wind kept howling. The river kept rising. Luna's cries became more desperate as she realized she was running out of options. She could swim. All dogs could swim, but not for long, not with her heavy belly full of puppies. The current was too strong, the water too cold, the distances too far. As the water reached her chest, Luna lifted her head to the dark sky and let out another cry. It was a sound that carried all her fear, all her hope, and all her desire to live. It was a sound that would change everything, though she didn't know it yet. Because sometimes, even in the darkest moments, when all seems lost, miracles can happen. And Luna's miracle was about to begin. Marcus Chen pulled his rain jacket tighter around himself as he hurried through the stormy night. The 24-year-old veterinary student had just finished his late shift at the Bay Ridge Animal Hospital, where he worked part-time while studying. Usually, he would have taken the bus home, but tonight the roads were so flooded that all public transport had stopped. His mother had called twice already, worried about him walking home in such terrible weather. "I'm fine, Mom," he had assured her. "I'll be home in 20 minutes. But that was before the storm got even worse, forcing him to take a longer route because his usual path was completely underwater. The wind was so strong it nearly knocked him off his feet several times. His boots made splashing sounds with every step, and the rain hitting his face made it hard to see. Marcus was thinking about the warm cup of tea waiting for him at home when he heard something, a sound different from the howling wind and pounding rain. He stopped walking and listened carefully. There it was again, a cry that made his heart skip a beat. After working at the animal hospital for 2 years, Marcus knew the sound of an animal in distress. This wasn't just any cry. This was the sound of pure desperation. "Hello," he called out, though he knew an animal wouldn't answer. Marcus pulled out his phone and turned on its flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness and rain, showing him he was closer to the Rivera River than he'd realized. The usually peaceful river had turned into a raging torrent of muddy water. The cry came again, louder this time. Marcus moved his light around until he caught a glimpse of something moving on a small patch of land that was quickly disappearing under the rising water. His heart nearly stopped when he saw what it was. A dog, and not just any dog, but one that was clearly pregnant. "Oh no," Marcus whispered. He could see the dog was trapped. The water had cut off all escape routes, creating a small island that was getting smaller by the minute. The dog's fur was soaked, and even from a distance, Marcus could see she was shivering. Her belly was so swollen that moving must have been difficult even in good conditions. Marcus checked his phone, only 15% battery left. He quickly dialed 911, but a recorded message told him all emergency services were busy with flood-related calls. He tried the animal control number next, but got the same result. The dog let out another cry, and Marcus could see the water was now up to her chest. "Hang on, girl," he shouted, though the wind nearly drowned out his voice. "I'm going to help you." But how? The current was too strong to swim across, and he had nothing with him that could help. Marcus looked around frantically and spotted some old wooden planks near a construction site. Could he make a bridge? No, the distance was too far, and the wood would be swept away instantly. Then he remembered something his professor had said just last week. In emergency situations, sometimes the best thing you can do is ask for help. Marcus opened his phone's camera and started a live video on his social media account. His hands were shaking as he filmed the trapped dog and explained the situation. "I'm near the Rivera River Bridge on Oak Street," he said into the camera. "There's a pregnant dog about to drown. I can't reach her alone. If anyone nearby has rescue equipment or experience, please come quickly. She doesn't have much time." To his amazement, people started responding immediately. Comments flooded in, and several people said they were on their way. Some mentioned they were calling a friend who worked in water rescue. Another person wrote that they lived just 2 blocks away and had strong ropes. Marcus kept his light focused on the dog, talking to her continuously. "Just hold on a little longer, girl. Help is coming. You can do this. Stay strong." The dog seemed to be listening, her eyes fixed on him despite the rain and wind. Those eyes held so much trust and fear that Marcus made a silent promise. No matter what it took, he would not let this dog die tonight. The water kept rising, but now there was hope. In the distance, Marcus could hear voices calling out and see flashlight beams moving closer. The miracle was beginning, but would help arrive in time? The next 15 minutes felt like hours to Marcus as he watched the pregnant dog struggle to keep her footing. The water was now reaching her chest, and her cries had become softer, as if she was losing strength. He kept his phone's light steady on her, making sure she knew she wasn't alone, even though his arm was tired and his whole body was shaking from the cold. The first person to arrive was Tom Wilson, a local hardware store owner who lived nearby. He came running with several lengths of rope and a large flashlight. "I saw your video," he panted, setting down his supplies. "My wife is bringing more people and some life jackets." Before they could start planning a rescue, they heard a car horn. Through the rain, they saw headlights approaching. It was Sarah Martinez's old blue pickup truck. Sarah had worked as a water rescue specialist for 20 years before retiring last year. She jumped out of her truck, already wearing a life vest and carrying professional rescue equipment. "What's the situation?" she asked, her experienced eyes taking in the scene. Marcus quickly explained about the pregnant dog and how long she had been trapped. Sarah nodded, her face serious as she watched the dog struggling to stay above water. "The current's too strong for a direct approach," Sarah said, checking the water speed with a small floating device she had brought. "And that bank could collapse any minute. We need to create a safety line, and we need to do it fast." More people were arriving now. Mrs. Thompson from the Blue House came with blankets and hot thermoses of coffee. The Johnson twins from the high school football team showed up, ready to help with their strong arms. Even Mr. Peterson, the retired engineer, arrived with some climbing equipment from his mountain climbing days. Sarah took charge immediately. "We need 3 teams," she said firmly. Team 1 will secure the safety lines to those big trees. Team 2 will help with the pulley system. Team 3 needs to be ready with blankets and first aid when we get her out. The group worked quickly in the pouring rain. Tom and the Johnson twins secured the ropes to the trees. Mr. Peterson helped Sarah set up a clever pulley system that would help them fight against the current. Mrs. Thompson organized the emergency supplies and called the all-night veterinary clinic to be ready. But while they worked, the situation was getting worse. The small piece of ground where the dog stood was crumbling away. She had to keep moving her paws to find stable footing, but her pregnant belly made it hard to balance. Everyone could see she was exhausted. "She can't last much longer," Marcus said anxiously to Sarah. The dog's eyes were still focused on them, but her breathing was becoming more labored. The puppies in her belly were probably adding to her exhaustion. Sarah finished checking all the knots one final time. "Okay, here's the plan," she said. "Marcus, you're the one she's been watching. You're going to talk to her while I approach with the rescue harness. Everyone else, hold those safety lines exactly as I showed you. If that bank gives way or the current gets stronger, those ropes are our only backup." The rain seemed to fall even harder as Sarah began her careful approach. She moved sideways through the water, fighting against the current while Marcus kept talking to the dog. "You're doing so great, girl," he called out. "Just a little longer. Sarah's coming to help you. You can trust her." The dog watched Sarah's approach with tired eyes. Everyone held their breath as Sarah got closer, inch by inch. The water was deep enough now that Sarah had to swim part of the way, the rescue harness held carefully above the water. Just then, they heard a terrible cracking sound. Part of the bank where the dog was standing began to break away. The dog cried out in terror as her back paws lost their grip. Sarah lunged forward, but the current was pulling the dog away. Time seemed to freeze as everyone watched in horror. Could they save her in time, or had they been too late? The next few seconds would decide everything, and not just for the dog, but for all the tiny lives she carried within her. Time seemed to stop as the pregnant dog's back paws slipped off the crumbling bank. Her tired body started to fall backward into the rushing water, and several people screamed. But Sarah Martinez was ready. 20 years of rescue experience had taught her to prepare for exactly this kind of moment. Just as the dog was about to fall completely into the water, Sarah's hand shot out and grabbed the loose skin at the back of her neck, the same way a mother dog might carry her puppy. With her other hand, Sarah held tight to her safety rope. The pregnant dog whimpered but didn't struggle, as if she knew this grip was saving her life. "Pull us in, now," Sarah shouted over the storm. The Johnson twins and Tom immediately began pulling on the ropes, their muscles straining with the effort. The current was incredibly strong, trying to tear both Sarah and the dog away. Marcus waded into the shallower water, ready to help. "Keep pulling," he encouraged everyone. "We've almost got them." His phone's live stream was still running, and hundreds of people were now watching, sending messages of hope and support. Mrs. Thompson was praying out loud, her hands clasped together as she watched. Mr. Peterson kept checking the ropes and pulleys, making sure everything held firm. Other neighbors who had just arrived formed a human chain, ready to help once Sarah and the dog got closer to the shore. Inch by inch, the rescue team pulled Sarah and the dog through the rushing water. The dog's eyes were wide with fear, but she remained amazingly calm in Sarah's grip. Perhaps she sensed that these humans were her only hope for survival. Finally, they were close enough for Marcus to reach them. He carefully took the pregnant dog from Sarah's tired arms, while others helped Sarah get back to solid ground. The dog was shivering violently, her wet fur plastered to her body, making her swollen belly look even bigger. "Quick, bring those blankets," Marcus called out. Mrs. Thompson rushed forward with warm, dry blankets, and everyone worked together to dry the dog. Despite being cold and scared, the dog didn't snap or growl. She just looked at each person with grateful eyes, as if saying thank you. "We need to get her to the animal hospital right away," Marcus said, checking her vital signs like he'd learned in veterinary school. "She's exhausted, and being in that cold water for so long isn't good for her or the puppies." That's when they heard another sound, sirens. Someone had managed to get through to emergency services, and an animal rescue van was finally arriving. The van carefully made its way through the flooded streets, its headlights cutting through the rain that was still falling heavily. 2 animal rescue workers jumped out of the van, One of them, a woman named Dr. Lisa Chen, turned out to be one of Marcus's teachers from veterinary school. We saw your live stream, she explained, quickly examining the pregnant dog. The whole city is watching. You've all done an amazing job. The dog allowed Dr. Chen to check her without any resistance. She's cold and exhausted, but I think she and the puppies will be okay, Dr. Chen announced, and everyone cheered. However, we need to get her to the hospital right away for proper care. As they carefully lifted the dog into the warm van, Sarah stepped forward. She was still dripping wet from the rescue but smiling. I'll come with you, she said, looking at the dog with concern. I want to make sure she's really okay. Marcus nodded. I'm coming too, he said. He had already texted his mother to let her know he was safe, but would be late coming home. There was no way he could leave now. He needed to see this through. The rest of the crowd began to disperse, but everyone was buzzing with excitement about what they had just been part of. The Johnson twins were already telling the story to some late arrivals. Mrs. Thompson was calling everyone she knew. Mr. Peterson was carefully packing up his climbing equipment, looking proud. As the rescue van carefully drove away, with Sarah and Marcus following in Sarah's truck, the storm began to ease slightly. The worst of the danger was over, but the story wasn't finished yet. No one knew it at the time, but this rescue was just the beginning of something even more special. The Bay Ridge Animal Hospital was usually quiet at night, but not tonight. News of the dramatic river rescue had spread quickly, and several staff members had come in voluntarily to help. The pregnant dog lay on a warm blanket in the examination room while Dr. Chen performed a thorough checkup. Marcus and Sarah stood nearby, both still in their wet clothes but refusing to leave. They watched anxiously as Dr. Chen used an ultrasound machine to check on the puppies. The dog, who they had started calling Luna because of her beautiful silver-gray coat, remained calm during the examination as if she knew she was finally safe. This is remarkable, Dr. Chen said, moving the ultrasound wand carefully over Luna's swollen belly. I can see 6 puppies, and despite everything that's happened, they'd all appear to be healthy. Their heartbeats are strong. She smiled at Luna, who wagged her tail weakly in response. The nurse, Jenny, came in with some warm fluids and medication. Her temperature is almost back to normal, Jenny reported, gently petting Luna's head. But she's severely dehydrated and exhausted. She'll need to stay here for at least a few days. Sarah, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly spoke up. I'll pay for her treatment, she said firmly. And she hesitated for a moment, then continued. I'd like to foster her. I have experience with pregnant dogs from my time working at the rescue center. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. That would be perfect. She'll need a quiet place to give birth and care for her puppies. But first, we need to see if she has a microchip or if anyone reports her missing, though given her condition when Marcus found her, I suspect she was abandoned. The scan for a microchip came back negative. Marcus wasn't surprised. He had already guessed Luna's sad story. I've seen this too many times, he said softly. People get a dog, then abandon her when they find out she's pregnant. They don't want the responsibility. Luna seemed to understand they were talking about her. She lifted her head and looked at each person in the room, her brown eyes full of trust despite everything she had been through. When her gaze met Sarah's, something special happened. Luna's tail started wagging faster, and she made a small whimpering sound, as if asking Sarah to come closer. Sarah moved to Luna's side and gently scratched behind her ears. Luna leaned into her touch and sighed contentedly. Everyone in the room could see the instant bond forming between them. Hey there, sweet girl, Sarah whispered. Would you like to come home with me once you're better? Dr. Chen watched this interaction with a smile. Well, I think Luna has made her choice clear. Sarah, if no one claims her in the next few days, you can start preparing to take her home. But remember, she could give birth any day now. I'll help, Marcus offered immediately. I can check on her during my shifts, and I'd love to be there when the puppies arrive. This can be my special project for my veterinary studies. His excitement was obvious. This was a chance to get hands-on experience with a case he truly cared about. The next few hours were busy with treatment and preparation. Luna received fluids, vitamins, and a small, careful meal. Sarah made several trips to her truck, bringing in blankets and supplies she would need for fostering. Marcus called his mother to explain everything, and she promised to bring him dry clothes and food. By early morning, Luna was sleeping peacefully under warm blankets. The storm outside had finally passed, and the first rays of sunrise were peeking through the window. Sarah sat next to Luna's bed, already protective of her new foster dog. Marcus was nearby, making notes about Luna's condition for his veterinary coursework. The immediate danger was over, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Luna had a long journey ahead, giving birth, raising her puppies, and hopefully finding her forever home. But looking at her peaceful face as she slept, surrounded by people who cared about her, it was clear that her life had already changed dramatically for the better. Little did they know, the coming days would bring even more surprises, and Luna's story would touch more lives than anyone could have imagined. 3 days had passed since Luna's dramatic rescue from the river. The story had spread all over town, and even made it to the local news. Sarah's phone kept ringing with calls from reporters wanting to interview her about the rescue, but she politely declined them all. Her focus was entirely on Luna. Today was the big day. Luna was finally coming home with Sarah. The veterinary team had kept her under observation to make sure she and her puppies were truly okay after their ordeal. Now, Dr. Chen was satisfied that Luna was strong enough to leave the hospital. Remember, Dr. Chen said as she helped Sarah get Luna ready to leave, she could go into labor any time now. The puppies are fully developed, and her temperature has started to drop slightly, which is often a sign that birth is near. Marcus had arrived early that morning to help with the move. He carried a box full of supplies, special food for nursing mothers, soft blankets, puppy pads, and everything else Luna might need. His mother had also sent along some home-cooked meals for Sarah, knowing she would be busy caring for Luna. "The whelping box is all set up at your house?" Marcus asked Sarah. They had spent the previous evening preparing a special corner in Sarah's spare room, creating a safe and comfortable space where Luna could give birth and care for her puppies. Sarah nodded, gently attaching a new collar around Luna's neck. It was soft blue with a silver tag that read Luna on one side and Sarah's contact information on the other. Luna stood still, wagging her tail as Sarah fastened it. She looked like a different dog from the one they had rescued. Her coat was clean and brushed, her eyes were bright, and her whole body language showed she felt safe and loved. The drive to Sarah's house was peaceful. Luna sat in the back seat of Sarah's truck, with Marcus beside her. She seemed to enjoy watching the world through the window, her ears perking up at interesting sounds. They passed the Rivera River, which had returned to its normal calm state. Luna looked at it briefly but showed no sign of fear. Sarah's house was perfect for a dog family. It had a large, fenced backyard with plenty of grass and shade trees. Inside, everything was prepared for Luna's arrival. The spare room had been transformed into a cozy nursery, with the whelping box in one corner and comfortable chairs for Sarah and Marcus to keep watch when the time came. Luna explored her new home carefully, sniffing every corner. When she found the whelping box, she stepped in and turned around a few times, then lay down with a contented sigh. Sarah and Marcus exchanged happy smiles. Luna had approved of their preparations. "Look at her," Sarah said softly. "It's like she knows this is her home now." She sat down next to the whelping box, and Luna immediately put her head in Sarah's lap. The bond between them had grown stronger each day at the hospital. Marcus checked Luna's temperature one more time, writing it down in the logbook they had started. "Everything looks perfect," he said. "I can come by twice a day to check on her, and I'm only a phone call away if anything happens." As they sat there, Luna suddenly became more alert. She started rearranging the blankets in the whelping box, pushing them around with her nose. Her breathing changed slightly, and she seemed restless. "I think this might be it," Sarah said excitedly. Dr. Chen said this kind of nesting behavior often means labor will start soon. She quickly texted Dr. Chen to update her, while Marcus double-checked that all their supplies were ready. Luna looked up at them with trusting eyes, as if saying she knew they would help her through this next challenge. The scared, desperate dog from the riverbank was gone. In her place was a calm, confident mother-to-be, surrounded by people who loved her. As the afternoon sun filled the room with warm light, Sarah and Marcus settled in for what they knew might be a long wait, but they didn't mind. They were about to witness something amazing, the beginning of new lives, a continuation of the miracle that had started on that stormy night by the river. The first signs of labor started just as the sun was setting. Luna became increasingly restless, pacing in and out of her whelping box. Sarah sat nearby, speaking softly to her, while Marcus monitored her condition and kept Dr. Chen updated by phone. "You're doing great, Luna," Sarah reassured her. She had helped with dog births before, but this felt different. This was Luna, the brave dog who had survived the flood, who had trusted humans even after being abandoned. Sarah felt honored to be part of this moment. Around midnight, Luna's contractions became stronger. She settled into the whelping box, her eyes fixed on Sarah as if making sure she wasn't alone. Marcus had all their supplies ready: clean towels, warm water, medical equipment, and the special checklist Dr. Chen had prepared for them. "The first puppy is coming," Marcus whispered excitedly. His veterinary training was valuable now as he guided Sarah through what to expect. Luna remained remarkably calm, seeming to understand that she was in good hands. At exactly 12:47 a.m., the first puppy arrived. It was a tiny black and tan bundle, and Luna immediately began cleaning it. Marcus checked the puppy quickly. It was a healthy male, already making small squeaking sounds. Sarah helped dry him with a soft towel before placing him back with Luna. "One down, 5 to go," Sarah said, smiling as she watched the new mother and her first puppy. But there wasn't much time to rest. Luna's contractions were starting again. The second puppy arrived 20 minutes later, a female with Luna's beautiful silver-gray coat. Through the early morning hours, Luna worked hard to bring her puppies into the world. Each time, she showed amazing strength and patience. Sarah and Marcus worked as a team, supporting Luna and checking each puppy as it arrived. Dr. Chen stayed on the phone, ready to help if needed. The fifth puppy gave them a scary moment when it seemed very quiet at first. But Marcus gently rubbed it with a towel, and suddenly it let out the loudest cry of all the puppies. "That's quite a set of lungs." Sarah laughed, relieved. Luna lifted her head to check on the noisy puppy, her tail wagging slightly. Finally, at 3:23 a.m., the last puppy arrived, another male, with unique markings that looked like he was wearing little white socks. Luna cleaned him thoroughly, then lay back, exhausted but proud. All 6 puppies were now snuggled against her, drinking milk and making contented little sounds. Marcus did a final check of all the puppies. "They're all perfect," he announced, his voice full of joy and professional pride. 3 boys and 3 girls, and Luna did an amazing job. He patted Luna's head gently, and she licked his hand in response. Sarah couldn't stop smiling as she watched the new family. The puppies were all different colors. 2 looked like their mother with silver-gray coats. 1 was completely black, 2 were black and tan, and then there was the little one with the white socks. They were so tiny, each one could fit in the palm of a hand. "I can't believe just a few days ago she was trapped in that flood," Sarah said softly, taking pictures to send to everyone who had helped with the rescue. Mrs. Thompson had already texted 3 times asking for updates, and the Johnson twins had promised to bring breakfast in the morning. Luna looked up at Sarah with tired but happy eyes. She seemed completely different from the scared, desperate dog they had found by the river. Now she was a proud mother, safe and loved, caring for her babies with confidence. As the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow through the window, Sarah and Marcus finally sat back in their chairs, exhausted but happy. Luna had all 6 puppies snuggled close, nursing contentedly. The room was peaceful, filled with the soft sounds of tiny puppy snores and Luna's gentle breathing. "Welcome to the world, little ones," Sarah whispered. She knew that soon they would need to think about finding homes for the puppies, but for now, this moment was perfect. Luna and her babies were safe, loved, and together. The happy ending to one chapter of their story, and the beginning of something new and wonderful. 8 weeks had passed since the stormy night of Luna's rescue. The tiny puppies were now playful balls of energy, tumbling around Sarah's backyard under their mother's watchful eye. Luna had proven to be an excellent mother, patient and loving with her babies, and completely devoted to her new family. The story of Luna's rescue had touched many hearts in Bay Ridge. People often stopped by to visit, bringing treats for Luna and toys for the puppies. Mrs. Thompson came every afternoon with homemade dog biscuits. The Johnson twins helped build a special playground for the puppies in the backyard. Even Mr. Peterson, who had never had a dog, became a regular visitor. Marcus continued his daily visits, though now they were more for pleasure than medical necessity. He had documented the puppy's growth for his veterinary studies, and his professors were impressed with his detailed records. But more importantly, he had become part of Luna's extended family. "I can't believe how big they've gotten," Marcus said one sunny morning, watching the puppies play. Each puppy had developed its own personality. The black one, whom they called Shadow, was the adventurous leader. The two silver-gray ones, Luna Jr. and Misty, were clever and quick. The black and tan twins, Star and Scout, loved to play together, and Little Socks, with his white feet, was the gentle peacemaker. Sarah sat on her porch steps beside Marcus, with Luna lying contentedly at their feet. "It's almost time to find them homes," she said softly. This was something they had discussed carefully. They wanted to make sure each puppy would go to a perfect family. They didn't have to look far. News of the puppies had spread, and many people had asked to adopt them. Mrs. Thompson's daughter and her husband wanted Shadow. They had a big house with a large yard. The Johnson twins' parents surprised everyone by asking to adopt both Star and Scout, saying their home felt too quiet with their sons away at college. Mr. Peterson shocked everyone by asking to adopt Socks. "My house needs some life in it," he said, his eyes twinkling. "And that little fellow reminds me of my childhood dog." When Socks licked his face and curled up in his lap, everyone knew it was meant to be. Luna Jr. found a home with Dr. Chen, who had fallen in love with the puppy during her checkups. And Misty was adopted by Marcus's mother, who said she couldn't bear the thought of not having one of Luna's puppies in her life. The day came to send the puppies to their new homes. Each family came to pick up their puppy, promising to bring them back for regular visits. Luna watched calmly as each of her babies left, seeming to understand that they were going to good homes. She gave each puppy a final nuzzle, as if giving them her blessing. But the biggest surprise was still to come. After the last puppy had left, Sarah sat down with Luna and took a deep breath. "Well, girl," she said, scratching Luna's favorite spot behind her ears, "how would you like to make this your forever home?" Luna's tail wagged so hard her whole body shook. She had known all along what Sarah had just figured out. They belonged together. The foster arrangement had turned into true love, and Sarah couldn't imagine her life without Luna. They celebrated Luna's official adoption with a party in the backyard. Everyone who had helped with the rescue came to congratulate them. Tom brought a special dog cake from his wife's bakery. The Johnson twins set up a small pool for Luna to play in. She was no longer afraid of water, especially when Sarah was nearby. As the sun set on that happy day, Sarah watched Luna playing with her friends, her silver-gray coat shining in the evening light. It was hard to believe that just 2 months ago, the same dog had been frightened and alone, about to be swept away by the flood. Now she was healthy, happy, and loved by an entire community. Luna's story had touched many lives and brought out the best in everyone. She had gone from being a scared, abandoned dog to a beloved family member who had changed not just Sarah's life, but the lives of everyone who knew her. And though her puppies had gone to new homes, they would always be connected through the miracle that had brought them all together on that stormy night.